Good morning, it's Kelly on Voluntary Virtues Network. This is The Conversation. You can catch me every Thursday at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can also catch me every Monday on globalwealthprotection.com. So, I'm going to change things up a little bit, only because if I talk any more about cops and immigration, I might just hurl myself out the window. So, but what also, and of course, there's just various levels of tyranny. And the one I'm going to discuss today is just more of well, it's a lifestyle choice in the face of tyranny, I would say, and that's agorism. Uh, I think, it's something that we see and we've kind of been brought up with our entire lives for the most part. Short of living under a rock, I think every person in America kind of has seen some exhibition of that sort of thing. And basically, it's a uber free market. It's a completely unregulated market, and I'm saddened by the fact that it's under such threat of violence, and that individuals who seek to either just eke out a living, enjoy what they do, want to make a little extra scratch, want to get their business started, all of these things, that it's so discouraged. And of course, this is all done in the name of safety. Now, everything ranging from the FDA having a 6-month sting operation on that nasty Amish raw milk crime syndicate, down to cart vendors in Chicago who want to sell tamales, and or Uber and Lyft even. I think there's a certain amount of regulation they're actually following, but the established limo and taxi drivers don't want them out there because they're undercutting them ridiculously in the pricing. And what's really sad, and what I see a lot is, the cops are sitting there justifying it, that these feds and these government agents justify it, saying, well, it's unsafe, and we've had complaints, and I'm thinking, who on earth, like, what sort of bottom dweller do you have to be to complain about somebody selling tamales out of a cart? Like, I can't even imagine the type of asshole you have to be to report that. Like, it's one thing to say, I didn't like your tamales, or they made me a little sick, or I don't like the competition, any number of things, but to report them, geez. On the one hand, you want to say the person who's reporting them needs to get a life, but then I also want to call out the damn cop or the regulator who comes and shuts them down and says, yeah, you got to shut your shit down. Or in the name of safety, go to City Hall, file these papers, wait in line, take a number, and then pay $400 or $500 for the privilege of setting up your lemonade stand, and then we'll all be safe. And I'm thinking, you know what? The last time I heard something like that, like you could buy your way into these licenses, or you can buy your way into, public safety. All of a sudden, like, you go from safe to unsafe, and it's just a matter of a couple $100. The last time I heard about that, it was driving in a car in Manila, saying you can just buy a license. There's no testing. You can literally just buy a license. You don't have to do anything. There's not even the pretense, right, of saying, let's give you a little test, or let's see what you can do. See if you know where the windshield wipers are. No, none of that. You could literally just buy it. You pay for it. And I thought, man, that's horrible. What good does that do? And that was back in my Uber Stady days. But even then, I was put off by the fact that you could just buy a permit, right? Like, well, what? That doesn't do anything. That's government corruption in the third world. No. This is government in general, and it doesn't matter which world you're in. If you want to do things, it's becoming painfully obvious that you can buy your way into it, and that's what you have to do. You have to pay to play, and that saddens me. That saddens me in a place that purportedly is about capitalism and entrepreneurship. You know, I mean, America has become such a misnomer in general. I mean, everything from the false advertising at the foot of the Statue of Liberty saying, "Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." No, don't really do that. Don't really do that. We're going to put them in storage units and send them back. I mean, and then there's people who are saying, "Oh yeah, we're all about freedom, and we're not even in the top 10 of the most economically free in the world." And then you see why. You see why. It's because you can't just come here and start working. You can't just come here and start selling something. In fact, you have cases where agorism becomes the trumped up charge. What was his name? Eric Garner. I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. I didn't want to confuse him with another person. But Eric Garner was the guy who was suffocated on the street by cops, right? And he basically was taken down, and he had some sort of respiratory issue to begin with, which didn't help the situation. But he's killed. And apparently, what initially triggered all of this, what triggered the encounter, was that he might have been selling illegal loose cigarettes. And I'm thinking, wow, because he was selling loose cigarettes and not paying taxes, that posed a threat, such a threat, I might add, to the city or to the community that he had to be taken down. I mean, a 2-year battle starting in 2010 to take down Amish raw milk vendors. They're Amish. They're so out there. I mean, it's not like you can't find them. It's not like they were being sneaky. You know where they live. You know what they look like. You know what they drive. I mean, it's not like you can't. But there was a sting operation behind it. Yeah, the feds were. The FDA was actually trying to be stealthy about finding these very open people. I mean, all over the fact that they were selling unlicensed raw milk, and the threat that's posed to these people, the fines, the jail time, and the thing is the fines are, if you don't pay the other fine, the cheaper fine of getting the permit, right? If you're willing to pay $400 or $500 to set up your lemonade stand, then that's okay. But if you don't, then I'm going to charge you double for not paying the fine initially. And that's going to make us all safer. That's no different than saying, I just saw you make an illegal lane change, and I'm going to charge you $375, but I'm going to set you free. And we're all going to be safer. I mean, this is the delusion, right? Well, cops keep the streets safe, and they do so because we're going to detain you for 10 or 15 minutes, take down a bunch of personal information, and issue you a piece of paper that obliges you to either pay a certain sum or show up in court and see if you can defend yourself and talk yourself out of it. But in the interim, they set you free. You can just go. You just did something so egregious that it threatened public safety, but I pulled you over and gave you a piece of paper to extort you for a certain amount of money, and now I'm going to set you free again. You pose that much of a threat. Right? I pose that much of a threat with my broken taillight, with my rolling stop on an empty-ass street. I pose so much of a threat that you let me go. But what makes it all safer is that I'm going to pay this extortion fee in a couple weeks. I think it's a thinly veiled attempt at revenue generation. I mean, obviously, you can't rationalize this as being anything more than that. And I think the saddest part is that the United States has set itself up in general, right down to its local municipalities, to being so obnoxious that it's become a business to work around it. I think about that. You're so oppressive. You're so obnoxious with your permits and your regulations. You've gotten so overbearing in every way that it's become a whole business to just try. I mean, seriously, there has to be an industry that's burgeoning trying to find workarounds. You have CPAs who are trying to help you find a workaround taxes. You have financial planners who help you find legal ways to move your money offshore into tax shelters. That's what global wealth protection does. We try to find legal ways to protect your assets. You have countries, full countries, trying to avoid the United States. Full countries. You have countries who won't even allow Americans to set up bank accounts in their country anymore because we've got the FATCA law following us wherever we go. We got this big-ass freaking IRS baggage that follows us everywhere we go in the world. I think we're one of 2 countries in the world. I can't even remember. The other one is like some tiny little, starts with an E. It's a tiny little country. I think it's in Eastern Europe. I'm not 100% sure. But we're one of 2 countries that actually tax its citizens no matter where they earn. You have Russia and China trying to broker deals on how to omit the United States as the reserve currency in their trade agreements so that they can just go direct from ruble to yuan. Nobody wants to deal with the United States. You have people expatriating. You have corporations and businesses expatriating, all because the United States is such a fucking ogre. And it's right down to the little guy. I mean, you want to sit here and tell me, I mean, here I am listening to people bemoan the fact that, you know, the poor are being taxed to death. Not really. When you look at the effective tax rate of people who are making under $30,000, it comes out to something in the neighborhood of, 5%. When all's said and done, about 5%. It's, they're in a bracket that charges 12%, but in the end, it gets to, when all said and done, in the deductions and everything, you end up with something like a 3 to 5%, I think 5% income tax. But you got to pay it all up front. I do. I have to wait for my return because I can't just keep my money and pay it at the end. I have to just get my wages garnished. So, but it's not the income tax. And the income tax sucks. Income tax sucks. I mean, I'm not making a case for it, but that's not where the poor get beat. The poor don't get attacked at the income tax level. That's just the beast you can see. They get taxed on fuel. They get taxed on their permits when they try to start a little business. They get taxed sales tax. They get taxed at property tax levels. They get taxed on, they get taxed on buried corporate taxes that are in everything that they buy. They're taxed to death. Rich people are taxed to death too, but they don't feel it as much on those levels. On those covert levels, it doesn't affect them nearly as much. They get affected more on the income tax level. But poor people get their ass kicked. And they get kicked, and we keep, and for whatever reason, they keep voting for people who are going to keep taxing them. But why? They come after them. I mean, I'm seeing, I see these businesses that are started by migrant workers. I don't know their legal status, and honestly, I don't care. But, they start their little cleaning business, they start their lawn care business, they start their tamale business and their food business, and it's like, I see that, and I'm like, my heart sinks that at some point, somebody's going to come along and shut them down. And I'm thinking, you know what? They haven't done a damn thing wrong. They don't pose a real threat to anybody. They take great pride in what they do. And you're going to shut them down because they don't have a permit. And the permit somehow, I mean, and this permit, mind you, is as miraculous and magical as any other thing that comes from government. You know, you can take a criminal act, put it through, you know, the magical government box, and it comes out justice on the other side. I mean, it's freaking amazing. You know, the magic pajamas of every cop, where, you know, if I were to do, if you know, if you're speeding and you're going 65 in a 60 zone, he goes 75 to catch you. It was for safety. It was heroic that he did this because he had his magic pajamas on and his flair, you know. And the same is true with permits. You pose a threat to society selling your food from a cart. But if you were to go to City Hall and purchase this several $100 permit, you will come out the other side totally safe. Right? If you actually ask, though, and this is funny, I know somebody who actually asked, what benefit is there to registering my car and getting a license? What benefit is there? And the only thing the person behind the counter could say was that you don't go to jail. You don't get fined. And I'm thinking, so even they know that this is a pointless racket. They don't even see, I mean, the fact that the person whose only job it is to sell registrations does not know the purpose of their job and knows that the only thing that there is to it is that you don't go to jail if you buy my shit. I mean, talk about a pointless job. Talk about the most pointless job. Hi, I sell something so that that what I sell, if you buy it, you don't go to jail. Like, really? That's your job? Your job is to sell shit to people for the sole purpose of them, their get out of jail free card? This is what I don't understand. The United States and like the local municipalities and state governments and every single tier of government has made an enterprise out of various ways for us to stay out of jail. But God forbid, okay, and that serves no market purpose whatsoever, right? There's no market purpose to that at all. There isn't. Like that doesn't fill a need. It wasn't like the market was crying out for permits. And the government benevolently said, I'll do it. I'll make the permits. Nobody else is doing it, we'll do it. That's not what they did. You know? Whereas, somebody's crying out for some hardcore cheap grub. Yours truly. I'm always down for cheap street vending grub. And people like me, I know people who are about that. And so, you know, some guy's like, hey, you know, I'm pretty good at making this stuff. I'll slap it together and sell you two for $1. Oh, are you actually filling a market need? Yeah, you need to pay a permit for that. What's the point of the permit? Safety. Oh, what does it indemnify me against anything that goes wrong? Is it like an insurance policy? Oh, no, none of that. If something goes wrong, you're still liable. So I'm still liable? What does the license do? Does somebody inspect my shit? Well, no, not regularly. I mean, you know, once a year or something, or maybe once every 6 months. But, you know, oh, so then what does this permit do again? It lets the city know that you're selling. Okay, so it's a registry. Well, something like that. Okay, and why does it cost money to get on this registry? Yeah, once you get to that, I mean, you know, I mean, if it's just a registry, I mean, Bed Bath & Beyond doesn't charge to get on their registry. Target doesn't charge to create a registry. Nobody else charges to get on a registry except for the state. The state, every time it wants to create new lists of people for various things, everything from registering your car to registering your cart to registering your business. And it's so bloated. It's so bloated. And I mean, I think of all the things that we could have right now. You know, these wars on lemonade stands and bake sales. And I'm thinking, everything from the child to the immigrant, we just kill their entrepreneurial spirit. Why? Why? I don't understand it. Like, I don't get it. Like, and I feel like if I were to sit down with some fucking bureaucrat who does this, like really, like the bureaucrat, like, you know, not the person who sells the registry because she doesn't, you know, she doesn't, but her boss, you know, if I were to sit down with somebody who runs that department and ask them, what are you doing? You know, what the hell is this? How do you justify your existence? I serve the public. No, you don't. No, that's not it. You need to come up with something else because I want to know exactly what benefit do I get in particular. Tell me, what does each person like me get from this? Nothing. I don't check for the damn license. I don't check to see that it's framed and visible. That's just one more that's just one more thing to narc on. You know, that's something to trump up somebody's charges on. That's what you do. I mean, that's how you can position somebody as a criminal if they don't have these, you know, these permits and these papers and they haven't paid their dues and whatnot. I mean, seriously, when Eric Garner, the way you should see the headlines. You should see the headlines. Everything from Eric Garner to the Amish, you know, raw milk vendors. I mean, the spin on it. You know, well, he was suspected of criminal cigarette sales and vending. Criminal cigarette sales? What? As opposed to what? When Marlboro sells them, it's not criminal? The rat poison and tar that's in them is not criminal? Jesus. They had, at one point, there was a guy who decided to come up with a way to roll the cigarettes with a machine. And apparently there was some sort of loophole in the cigarette laws where he was. I'll have to find the article, but I remember reading about it. And he was rolling these cigarettes, and because he was freely rolling them, right? They weren't pre-packaged cigarettes. They weren't subject to the taxes. They weren't subject to tobacco taxes, the same amount or something like that. And so he was doing this, and then he was selling them in packs. So he was legally acquiring the tobacco. He was legally purchasing the zigzags to put them in. He just had a machine that would pack them and, you know, roll them up. And then he would sell them. And they'd be ridiculously cheaper because of the taxes. And that was wrong. They ended up, you know, he ended up getting shut down. The same goes for, you know, people who were selling black market cigarettes from another state. You'd have neighboring states, and one state would have these onerous taxes on their cigarettes, and the other one didn't have as onerous taxes on their cigarettes. And then they'd meet in the middle, and the person would sell, you know, the person from the lower tax state would sell it cheaper than the other state, but more than what he bought it for, and make that profit margin. And that's illegal. I mean, there's a business, there's an industry of people who are just working around the United States and its various regulations and its various taxes. And you wonder why our economy sucks so bad. It sucks because there are people in this country that just don't want an economy. They don't want people earning. They want to bitch, and they want to leverage their political careers off of people earning, criminalizing people who make a lot, um, sanctifying the people who don't make enough, and saying, I want to be responsible for saving you so that you can vote for me. So I don't want anybody else to just go start a business. I want to be the one that says, I'm gonna overturn these laws. I want to be the one that says, I'm gonna get you a higher minimum wage. I want to be the one that's heroic. I want you to, I don't want you to just go do shit for yourself. I want to do it for you so that you can thank me later, so that I can build a career on doing shit for you and appeasing, the populist demands. But in the end, I don't really see why they're necessary. You don't need a politician to tell you that you can make great tamales and great cookies and brownies and lemonade. You don't need a politician or a bureaucrat to do what's been done for decades without a permit. And I find it, and the thing is there's still workarounds. It's not like you need, you have, what you have in many states is cottage laws. Cottage laws allow you to sell food out of your house without the 3 sinks and shit, up to a certain amount of money. You can make a certain amount of money out of your house through these cottage laws. So you don't have to find a commercial kitchen to cook and prepare food in. And the problem is that you can, once you cook the stuff, right? They don't want you have to sell it from your house. You can't go and then sell it at a farmer's market. You can't then go and sell it on the street. You can't then go and sell it on store shelves. You have to sell it from your house. And you can't have in some states you can't have a website driving traffic to you, because that's web sales. The actual financial transaction has to happen in your house. That was Texas at one point. I don't know if it's changed since then. But when I was looking up their cottage laws, it was that the financial transaction had to happen in your house. I couldn't go out and meet them somewhere with my phone and the little card slidey thing attachment and just take their credit card. No, I had to do that in my house. They don't want you to just go do. Nobody wants you to be self-sufficient. Nobody wants you to be, able to, taking your talents and selling them on the open market. Everybody wants to demonize capitalism, but in the end, what was wrong? What was wrong with somebody selling unlicensed tamales out of a cart? What was wrong with that? Seriously, what was immoral about that? What was oppressive about that? Nothing. They worked their hours on their terms, sold their product that they made on their terms with their recipe, and people wanted it and they bought it. I don't know. I always thought that agorism was just such a wonderful thing, and this thing is that, it should be normal. It should be normal to be able to sell whatever it is that you have. Kids selling their handcrafted things, why does, I don't know. I guess I just find the state to be such a killjoy. Like they're the asshole that shows up to your party drunk as fuck, starting fights, punching your best friend and and then saying, pay me for the privilege. There's that person. They don't, I wish more people would wake up to the fact that the government isn't there to protect you, and the government isn't there to enforce common sense regulations. When you see that the EPA is allowing off the coast of California billions and tons of toxins to be dumped into the ocean, but just not more than that, there's a safe amount of toxins to be dumped into the ocean. It's disingenuous, and in as much as I know there's people who are paranoid about being poisoned by, a warm cup of lemonade up from a street vendor, don't buy it then. Don't buy it. But for everybody else who, wants to live on the edge and drink raw milk and buy from street vendors, let them. I mean, if you're willing to let people go and skydive and do, and train for X Games, I think you can let people go and take a little risk in having, street vendor food and freaking unlicensed lemonade. Anyway, keep the entrepreneurial spirit alive. I fully encourage agorism. I would, if I really don't check as a consumer. I don't check for permits and I don't check for, registries and whatnot. I just check to see if your shit's good and I'll buy it. So, so for what it's worth, you do have consumers out there who are willing to just buy it because it's a quality product, not because you're licensed by the state. All right, take care, make it a good week, and I'll catch you later. Bye.